When you meet Denise Greer Jamerson, you realize that her life is about much more than making sure her son can build a future with tomatoes, corn, and sweet potatoes, or that her 87-year-old father can still handle his John Deere through the farm fields that have been part of this family for nearly 170 years. Her commitment and her husband John's commitment, they go far beyond their own family. Hi, I'm Dave Price, and welcome to the American Farmland Owner Podcast. Denise Jamerson's story is rare, and not just because of all the other things that her family's doing. We're going to get to those in a moment. But it's rare because her family is a black farm family in southwestern Indiana near Princeton. There aren't nearly as many black farm families in our country as there once were. Her family hopes to change that. We're going to start our conversation with what this farm family is all about. Let's talk about your background first, because you were born into this.
Right. That was a good thing. I'm glad that choice was made for me. I really am. I tell people that, the farm, living on the farm is a wonderful life. It's a wonderful lifestyle. And, dispel the myth. Although you couldn't have told me that when I was about 15, 16, though. I was born and raised on a farm here in Southern Indiana in a black farming community. On our farm, we had a full-fledged farm. We did row crops, we did animals, we did from the cows to the pigs to the chickens to the goats, horses. We did it all. So down here, and I got married and moved back, and now my son and is the sixth generation taking on the legacy for the family and the farming and learning what he can, from my dad, who is 87 and is still farming. And I tell people that we do what we have to do in order to let him do what he wants to do. So.
So now, did your husband already have the background, or did you rope him in?
Oh, he had a little bit of the background.
Okay.
But he kind of got roped in. His mother is from a small town just up the road from here, which, for him, that was a community that did farming and growing and things of that nature too. He just didn't grow up on the farm, but he went to the farm in the summer times and stuff. So, and we've been married for 40 years, so you can almost say that he's farm now.
He's not getting away. Hey, will you talk about, this has been, you're up to 6 generations?
Yeah.
So talk about the importance of the land itself, just because that's a heck of a long time.
Yeah. In the Smithsonian, one of my dad's quotes is, "The land is everything," and that is something that we're taught. Land is everything and land is power. So if you have your own land, then you kind of control your own life, your own destiny. If you can grow your own food, what else do you need? So land and land ownership is extremely powerful, and it is extremely important, and especially for the African American community. There's what's called heirs property, and a lot of the land that is in our community is heirs property. And over time, that's the way that they knew how to ensure security and sustainability for their families for the future generations.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because you started doing the math, and I'm sitting here talking to a black woman talking about 6th generation. You're going back a long time ago when, it's hard enough what you and your husband are doing right now in modern times, but back then that is a way different time back then. How was your family able to keep this in the family for so long?
Well, like you're saying, it's a whole lot different now. But when you think about it, and honestly, my dad says that it's getting ready to go back to this, which is the small family farm and living on the land and producing on the land and being able to be in a community to where it supports each other. So maybe we had the farm, but somebody else had the lumber mill, or somebody else had the grocery store, just in the community. So our land goes back to pre-Civil War. So being able to keep it was is that, like I said, they put it in heirs property. And right now my dad is still farming it, and it's been being farmed continuously. It's been used continuously because actually when my great great grandfather had it, it was a homestead, it was a farm, it was still a diversified farm, to where they did crops, they did animals, and they did, sustainability living. So being able to just continue to pass it down and secure it so that it can't be sold, bought, or taken away. And the thing about that now, and a part of my drive is that property, they did what they had to do in order to save it. But now, fast forward, it's not in a good place to be in heirs property because it doesn't have clear title. And until recently, people with heirs property could not participate in the USDA programs because there was not clear title to the land. But that has changed. But, just the thought of it being saved for us to be able, that forethought of them, being able to have us to always have a home place, always be able to be self-sustaining if needed.
Hey, will you talk a little bit more about that clear title to help folks understand what exactly that is and means?
Okay, so an heir's property, when I say clear title, like my grandfather left the land to all of his kids.
Hmm.
And so as all of those kids age out or pass away, it just continues to expand on who owns the property. So not one person owns that property, but all the brothers and sisters own the property. Then when all of them pass on, all of their kids own the property. Then when they pass, all of their kids own the property. So not only it expands, and it's actually dangerous if and on losing the property, because once it gets to a certain line, you have so many people. And in the state of Indiana, the way that it flows is that although they had good intentions on it staying in the family, it don't happen that way legally. So if somebody in the family, so say for instance, my uncle passed away, it went to his wife. So when
Hmm.
his wife dies, her heirs get it. So if she had kids outside of my uncle that are not his kids, it leaves his piece of the family, and in other states, you're able to, somebody can come and buy that interest of somebody who don't even realize that they're a part of this property. And if they buy that interest, then they have the right to force a sale. And to force a sale, then they can make that to where the actual heirs won't be able to even afford to purchase the property. So it's kind of dangerous, and it's something that, we help with the things that we do, help people to understand and how to untangle that so that you can do, you can have clear title and bring it, make sure it stays within the family.
I appreciate that you're the one in this operation that's keeping it all going and you're organizing this and you're organizing that. Do you ever get a chance when you're walking outside? Does it ever hit you about the land you're standing on? Like you talked about, this has been in the family pre-Civil War. Like, does that ever hit you like, holy cow? Like, I mean, that's a long time and all the things the family's been through, all the things the country's been through, the industry's been through. Like, do you ever have a time to just kind of take it in? Or are you so focused on surviving the day all the time?
You want to know what? That is the wind beneath my wings. When I get tired and I get weary and I'm ready to just say I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing on the land. Like right now, the property that my home place is on, it was my uncle's, and it was my great aunt's, and it was, so I it's the wind beneath my wings. My dad purchased a school called the Lyles Consolidated School when it went up for tax sale because he had went to school there and he didn't want it to be gone. So fast forward, he wasn't able to restore it. So I was a part of creating a nonprofit to restore the school so that we could restore the history. and so that people could come back and stand on the land that our people were on. So I do it all the time because it just gives me, and even thinking, I was like, if the trees could talk,
Hmm.
really, if the trees could talk. Or when I'm out riding in the combine with my dad, because he does a lot of families properties that are heirs property, and just talking to him about what he's seen, what it looked like when he was growing up. So yeah, it hits me a lot. It hits me a lot because I get tired a lot, and it's just like, you know what, just just do it. It's just your time. The torch is yours. Continue to teach my son,
Hmm.
continue to talk about the oral history, because the way we know is because the oral history was passed down to us, so it's just that continued connection with it. But I swear that I feel them sometime even telling me, you got it, you're
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
you can do it,
Hey, will you talk about what your husband is doing when he goes around talking to people? The one stat I saw from USDA surprised me in that you start going back, and I forget how many years back it is, but the percentage of active farmers who we have who are black families has been going down, not up. Why and how is that? And what is your husband? I know, I appreciate that he's out trying to get more people involved and explaining to people how to get involved. I don't understand why that is. Like, how could we possibly be going backwards on that?
I'm gonna be well,
I don't want to, I didn't mean to get deep on you, but that's just a stat that stuck out to
it's
me that
it's
surprised me.
yeah, it's not so much getting deep, but it's really being honest about why that happened.
Hmm.
The practices of the programs and the USDA,
Hmm.
like with the lawsuit, and
Yep.
it's real. That stuff is real. My family, my dad's been through that. I've watched him go through that. I've watched other farmers around here go through the practices of not being able to get the loans, or the
Hmm.
accelerated loans, to where the land is seized by the USDA. But the whole time it was a systematic thing of where, if you don't get if you don't get help with your crops in time, you're not going to get the production off of your crops. If you don't get the fertilizer, you're not going to get the yields that you do. So when you're not getting the yields, then that's going to make it hard for you to keep up with your payments. So then you accelerate the payments, and then the land is seized from you. Or there's just not, we just can't live like this off of not making any money. We can't,
Hmm.
our families can't survive off
Hmm.
of what we're producing from the land. So therefore we must go to the city, or like in Lyle Station, we don't always have the best land. It may be swampland, but if you don't have crop insurance, or you don't know any, or back then, and you didn't know anything about it, then you just lose a whole crop. I read a book, someone had given me at one of the crop service agency, about when the 1900s, when it would flood here in Lyle Station. And it wasn't until then that it really hit me of what it was really like when the whole area was flooded for months.
Hmm.
So for me, on the outside, I'm just looking, the house is flooded. But when those people survived off of the land and their gardens, then their food was wiped out. The food that they used and stored to get them through the winter, they didn't have that. And this was happening consistently over time. So you get to the point where I just got to go. My family can't eat. We got to eat. Even to the point of the animals. I didn't think about the animals in the flood and how they would lose. If
Hmm.
you're using mules to till your land, and you lose your mules and you're not making any money, how is that? How can you survive off of that? You know what I'm saying? So I even asked my dad, I didn't have no clue, because the book talked about how some of the barns were built so that they could take the animals up in top of the barn
Get above the
whenever the
water.
floods came. And he was like, oh yeah, home Jack, Mr. So and so had one of those barns. I used to go up in it all the time. I'm like, wow. But how would you even know to ask him that? How would you
Uh-huh.
even you don't even think through that, and then, like I said, then you go into your heirs property where, you don't have clear title. Then you go into, the practices of the systematic stuff of where we don't get the help or we don't get what, the assistance that we need. Even up until today, it's just really hard to gain ground or to be able to be full time or even keep the land.
So talk a little bit about what your husband's doing outside the farm too. So he's out speaking to people. What's he doing?
Yeah, he works with other farmers across the United States. They do what is called the Life Project. They work with Purdue Agribility and other farmers, and they teach about economics, innovation, ways to be able to farm without being traditional farmers, and bringing light to the up and coming. So they go to HBCUs and they do conferences and talk about the programs and opportunities with the different USDA programs and stuff like that. So they've been to Florida State, they've been to Virginia, they've been to Tennessee. So they just go around to different. So he has it's not quite a podcast, but like a Zoom every once a month to where they come together, and they bring guests on to talk to people, and they kind of pulled in doctors and business owners because that has a lot to do with health and wealth and food and agriculture and things of that nature. So it kind of is a gambit of everybody kind of in this space along, but honing in on the agricultural piece.
That whole support system.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about your operation because you got a lot of stuff going on there too. So explain the day to day of what you all are doing with Legacy.
Which one? Legacy or Greer Farms?
Yeah, that's true. Let's do them both.
Yeah,
It's a
well,
podcast. We got time. Let's do them both.
Yeah. Well, Greer Farms is my family farm with my dad, and my day starts off with seeing what his day looks like.
Okay.
He has people to help him, but at the same time, I have been groomed as a support to him. When we were growing up, Dad did custom work. He's done up to 3,000 acres of custom farming along with his farming, and he's had hired hands. So our job, because I had 5 sisters, our job was all the animals. When I grew up, when I left, I was like, we ran the other business. Dad was running a couple of businesses, and we were running the business at home, with the livestock. But as he tells me, everybody had to be diverse. All farmers around here had to be able to be diverse with the animals and the crops or whatever it was in order to survive. So, making sure that he's got what he needs, making sure that, he gets to the field, to and from the field, in the off season, just kind of helping him right now. It's helping him to understand um, succession planning or, the legal aspects nowadays. Because dad has a cell phone, but he turns it on when he calls you and he turns it off when he's done.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, just kind of, helping to sustain the farm as it is. So if it's driving him, helping him find equipment, that's how my day starts is making sure that all of that's on target. And so
Okay. So on Greer, still both animal and crops?
nope, just crops.
Just crops. Okay.
Just crops.
Okay. And what are those?
Corn and soybeans.
Corn and beans. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now what about the other side of your life with Legacy?
So with Legacy, right now it's
And Legacy Taste of the Garden. Let me use the whole name here. Excuse me.
Okay. So Legacy Taste of the Garden is produce. We grow produce. We use right now we're working on a demo farm. We've turned one of our farm stand location. We're turning it into a demo farm because as before the USDA, all of their programs are targeted towards big ag, corn, soybeans, acreage, combines. And so now this new wave of urban agriculture, small acreage agriculture, they're tailoring programs for that. And so we are using our farm stand plot as a demo farm so that people can come and see these practices, the ones that we implement. We have a greenhouse, we have a high tunnel that now they will do mulch. Now they will do, the climate smart and things that can help people maximize and sustain. So we're working on our demo farm and putting in new practices, or harvesting the vegetables. Right now, we're putting out the cover crops, or we're putting out the tarps. My son runs that. He's the farm manager. That's his baby over there. So,
Okay.
making sure he's got everything that he needs. And then Legacy has taken on uh, conferences. So right now I'm in the midst of getting a conference together for other farmers throughout the state of Indiana to help sure that, that they get information and to help them to do what they need, however, wherever they are, get them in what they need. So right now I'm in the midst of pulling together a conference, a 2-day conference for BIPOC farmers across the state of Indiana.
Does this family never on a Saturday night just sit on their butt and watch TV?
We want to, but a lot of times I tell people as soon as my feet hit the floor, I don't stop until I put them up to get into bed. Yeah.
All right, talk about so what kind of produce does your son have on Legacy?
He does a little bit of everything. He does the tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, sweet potatoes. Right now is fall crops. We do greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, root crops, onions. So he does a little bit of everything. Your normal garden type
Mm-hmm.
vegetables. And also we kind of try to be a little bit of cultural type vegetables because we do a lot of we do things in the inner cities. We were doing farmers markets up in Indianapolis. My husband's from Indianapolis. So we lived in Indianapolis for a stint, and then I moved back to Lyle Station. But because of the people of Lyle Station and my cousins and my family, we always have a carload of stuff
Mm-hmm.
going back, from my
Mm-hmm.
uncles, the watermelons, the cantaloupes, the
Mm-hmm.
sweet corn.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my son decided to go into it, when we went back to the city, showing him, you can come to Indianapolis and sell or whatever, we seen the food deserts. So we started working with urban growers up there within the inner cities at their markets and bringing things that they may not have, like the watermelons or like the cantaloupes or like the
Mm-hmm.
corn. So we worked in we go to markets up there in Indianapolis and help other people across the state in their markets. So, and then, where our farm stand is called Produce Alley. So there's a whole lot of other produce stands in our county. So there's a lot of growers, there's a lot of other farmers, and we aggregate some of their things, because even on our farm stand, what we don't grow, we get from them,
Mm-hmm.
and in a sense, it's supporting each other,
Each other.
helping do that. So we will aggregate from them and take to the city what we don't have, or take to wherever and purchase from them so that we can make sure that we're feeding the people. So it's all about feeding the people.
We've been doing this podcast for about a year now, and one of the things that is interesting me talking to people is like, I mean, these days it's big stuff, right? Like our lives are Amazon, Walmart, you got these giant companies and all kinds of different industries. So it's always interesting to hear from the smaller family operations, is that kind of network of support there, whether it's just learning what the heck to do, how to survive, how to grow, how to thrive, but just the economics of it, can it still be done on that level where you all can eat and you all are not having to find another job outside the farm just to pay the bills so you can afford to farm, that kind of thing. So is this whole system, like you were talking about how you kind of support each other, in your mind, in your extended community, is that base of support there for folks to make a living?
Um, I'm gonna say it's really not. It's not unless you have the land, unless you
Hmm.
can really scale up. Because I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and they're ranchers, and when they came back to the farm and have started doing the cows, but they were saying, once we got into it, we didn't realize that we had to be the marketer, that we had to go
Yeah.
out and find the people to sell this to, and so people who are really starting out, you got to understand that, first of all, you got to diversify. So you're not going to be able to just grow, like, all these different produce and not have nowhere for them to go.
Hmm.
Because number one, you got to figure out how to drive the people to you. You got to figure out all that marketing stuff. So without the support system, it's really, really hard, just trying to figure it out. That's why it's so important to network and to know the support system. But recently, the government, USDA, put out the what is called the Local Food Purchasing Agreement Program. And the purpose of the program was to buy produce from underserved, historically underserved BIPOC farmers in order to put the food back into the underserved communities. So the thing about it is that I think that a lot of times when you say urban or when you say underserved, well, I'm going to say underserved, you think of urban. But out here in the rural, there is just as many food insecure people as it
Hmm.
is in the urban
In the big city.
areas.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's that program has been able, because it was given to every state, this money, and every state was able to be unique about how do we reach the people. And you couldn't it a lot of the food banks help or are a part of it, but the thing about it is that they are supposed to tap into areas that aren't normally part of the food bank system, so to find different areas and different avenues, but at the same time, they're giving the farmers a fair price, a fair plus price for their products. So just like in Indiana, um, trying to create a program, because COVID let us see that we didn't have food system. We didn't
Right.
have a regional food system.
Hmm.
So each state trying to rebuild or to create or to sustain a regional food system is has been phenomenal. And it has been able to let people who may have not been thinking, I can't do this no more, be
Hmm.
able to still grow, to still buy things and put inputs into their farms to help them to grow, and to let them see, okay, well, to be able to do it wholesale. So wholesale may be the local farm to school. So being able to grow my product for the schools that are around here. So that's another program that's out. So there's programs and opportunities that are being created, that will hopefully and prayerfully make it so that people, this can be, if this is what you want to do, let's
Hmm.
do it, you know, and figure out the avenues, the value chain of how to either value add what you're doing, for an extended season, or to, have a distribution lane for whatever it is, whether it's a 5 pound box, a 20 pound box of tomatoes weekly, or whether it's a skid of 200 dozen ears of corn,
Hmm.
and it has some place to go.
I don't know if this is into kind of your circle, that either for you or for your husband, but as we look kind of across the country and we're seeing different entities kind of investing in people's operations on a variety of levels. Now, some people want that, some people don't want that, right? Here on the podcast, we talk primarily to people who either own the farm, operate the farm, manage the farm, or invest in farmland operations. In your circle of life, all these folks you're talking to, for anybody who maybe is interested in kind of outside investors, outside investor groups, whatever, is that there? Is that support and interest there? Especially, I guess I'm thinking in these smaller Black-owned family operations, for those who would even want that. Is that a thing out there? Or are you all pretty
Um,
much focused on kind of your own thing, and that's not even kind of a piece of the pie you're looking for? Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense, but I'm not going to say that it will, there is a lot of trust and scarcity. So when you talk about how we've had so much land and now we have none, you know, there has to be, trust in who would be investing in that land, or who would be, why are you doing this? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because there were so many bad practices and things that has caused us to lose land. I'm not saying that we don't need investors. I'm not saying that that's not what could happen, but it's going to take the things like I do, the things like other people in my world, in my space do, to come in as a trusted person to say they want to help,
Hmm.
even with the NRCS programs and the cover crops and the, letting the land set. I do believe that there's people, because like say like equipment, you know, uh for years I was like, somebody needs to buy my dad a new combine, you know, somebody needs to give my dad, to make it easier for him.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
would he, you know, if I wasn't there, if somebody came and said, I want to invest in your farm, he's going to be like, I'm good,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean like the new people like D'Anthony, my son.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that, because when people come and visit, they're like,
Support
how
you.
can we get into this? But
Hmm.
the land access is an issue, the
Yep.
equipment is an issue, and like for like cold storage, or if they're in the produce or transportation. So there's ways to invest into the black farming operations, but it's just who and how do we bring that you know to a jail point, to where
Right.
this is to help, this will help. And that's what we do with our Black Loom. Is for me, I know that my family has been through, my dad has been through the discrimination and all that, but at the same time, you know it is here for us. A lot of times we don't even know about it. We don't even know about the programs. We don't even know about the access to these opportunities. So the thing is that just given that information and that knowledge, and being there to say it's okay, you know, this will work. This is going to help your farm. If this is what you want to do, you're going to need some, a high tunnel, or you're going to need a low tunnel, or you're going to need pest management, or you're going to need irrigation, and if this can help you with the cost of that, why not?
Let me close with this. Like listening to all that you and your husband and your family are doing here. I was joking with you before we started recording here today, but why do you not just work at a bank 9 to 5 with evenings off, weekends off? Everything you keep talking about is we're doing this, we're doing this, we're helping with this, we're leading with this. Your husband's got this monthly Zoom thing he's doing with people. You're doing this, you're doing this demo farm. Every facet of your operation is letting people in, mentoring other people. And I appreciate that. I'm sure you're learning too, but you're sharing what you're learning here. This is all kinds of stuff that sounds super complicated, super busy, chaotic. I'm sure you're super organized, but this is an awful lot of stuff. Like at the heart of it, why are you doing all of this?
It's in me, and it's important. This is my heart. Growing up in this community, this is how we operate. My mom was at the church. My dad was the farm, and young kids worked with him. His young men worked with him. Older men worked with him. He was teaching them. My mom did all the organizing at the church for the speeches and the plays and the all of that. But it also is freedom. I grew up in an entrepreneurial type spirit, and my uncles and the families, and it's freedom. I would rather do this than to have a 9 to 5 and somebody telling me what I had to do step by step. And if I didn't do it, I'm in trouble,
Mm.
you know? So, I mean, there's a lot of, it's just my heart, it does makes me happy to see other people be able to do this, to be able to help them in any way that I can. Like I tell people, I'm not saying this because I'm just at the top and I know it. No, I'm going through this too. So if you don't have to go through this, let me tell you how, let me help you. If you accept a lot of, it's just my heart. It's really my heart. Like I said, farming has done us well. And like I tell people, our legacy is not money. It's not the money. It is the relationships and the family and the wealth of love and community. It's not a monetary thing.
Well, Denise, we really appreciate you making time for us here.
Okay. I appreciate being on. I'm one of these days I'm gonna close it down.
Hopefully
But I
not
don't
any.
think I can. I just don't think I can. My dad still pours into me. I still pour into my son, and hopefully he can continue to pour into his son. And it's not just me. I'm just the face right now. I'm the one that's telling everybody, but just like when my son started, all the men in the community, white, black, farming, young, old, is still coming alongside of him and helping him. Just like with my dad.
She is Denise Greer Jamerson, part of Greer Farms and Legacy Taste of the Garden in Indiana. You can learn more about Denise and John and what they're doing by reading our profile piece in the American Farmland Owner Weekly newsletter. Just go to AmericanFarmlandOwner.com and you can enter in your email address and then get the free newsletter sent to you every week.